Okay, so here's the article that I found from Levi's site, and I didn't even know about this if Levi hadn't gotten into a Twitter battle, which you guys absolutely have to read. I'll link to it below. It is hilarious. It will give you life. But so I'm not going to get into exactly what this article is talking about. You guys can check it out because it's very well written, and it's hilarious as hell. The main thing that I want to get into is the actual text messages because I think there's a lesson we can learn from this girl's mistake in terms of like how she's like chasing this dude. So here are the text messages. And if you're not familiar with this story, essentially what happened was this this woman on the right, she was on some dating app and she connected with the man on the left. They started texting back and forth, and I guess he wasn't, well, it's obvious he wasn't interested in her. And so she felt rejected, got all in her feelings, and put out a podcast or a video or something where she pretty much called him arrogant and said he was so rude to her. And in response, he showed up with receipts and shared the text messages, which clearly shows he was neither arrogant nor disrespectful, and she was just in her feelings from being rejected. So I'm not going to touch on the different things that the articles are talking about, but I do think that there is a teachable learning moment that every single woman can learn from with these text messages. The mistakes that this chick made is something that I think a lot of women make, myself included. Like, I'm not trying to just throw shade at her. I really just want this to be a teachable moment. And so let's get into the text messages. So the text messages start out pretty simple enough. They're just like, explaining, just going back and forth, just keeping it light. But you can see for the most part, she's texting him way more than he's texting her. So now things start to get into an issue once we get down to, which I think this, let me go back. I think this was November the 2nd was the date on this last one. I can't find the date. Let's see. Okay, so I believe this was November the 2nd. So the last time he texted her was when she was asking him, what turns you on? She said, does this turn you on? And I guess she's talking about the food. He says, not really. She said, what does? He said, girls. And she said, LOL. That was the last time he texted her, which was November the 2nd. You can look and see that the next time that she texts him was December the 1st. He didn't reply. So that's a month after the last time she heard from him. Then she texted him again December the 19th. He still did not reply. Then finally, she texted him December the 29th, and she pretty much goes into this whole race thing, which, again, I'm not going to touch on. Check out those articles and check out the Levi Twitter back and forth because it's just hilarious, and they do an exceptionally well job with talking about that. I'm just going into what can we learn and not make the same mistakes that this chick made. Okay. First things first, if you're texting a guy and you're texting him way more than he's texting you and he's not asking you any questions and it's like you're the one driving the conversation, it probably means he's not that into you. It probably means he's not interested enough to sustain the conversation, and he's probably just replying to be polite. If you feel like you're bothering him, just trust your gut, trust your instincts, and just walk away, leave that man alone. The second thing is, if it has been a month, a whole month, almost two actually, since you have heard from him and you've texted him 3 times and still haven't heard from him, honey, I mean, even Christ made a comeback after 3 days. If a man waits more than 3 days to reply to you, if you feel like you have to remind him that you're alive, then you're probably dead to him. Not to be mean, not to be like, too harsh or anything, but if he was thinking about you and if he was checking for you, you would know it. So if you have to do all this work and you have to be the one to drive the connection, you're chasing him. And if you're chasing him, you're going to always have to chase him, which that's fine if that's what you want. But if you want to be in a relationship where you feel like the man has pursued you, and because he pursued you, he won you over, and because he won you over, he's going to put in the work to keep you happy, keep the relationship going, all of that stuff, it has to start from here. But you can't start out being the pursuer and chasing after him and he's not showing interest. Like, it's clear that this guy's not that interested in her, and she's just getting all up in her feelings. So at this point, after okay, so the other thing, let's look at this text message. She says, we have a lot of friends in common, and if any of them saw this, I would be so ashamed. At this point, he's like, what? So now she's finally gotten him to respond. But she's trying to use shame and guilt and whatever else. And you can't do that. I mean, you can, but it's not going to work because it's manipulative. Like, people are people, they're not machines. Flip this the other way. If he had tried to manipulate her and said, oh, well, we have friends, and if your friends saw this, I would be ashamed of how you're doing this or whatever. Like, you can't guilt someone into being interested in you, or guilt someone into wanting to reply or pursue. You can't do that. Like, is that really what you want? So she's just making all kinds of just like silly mistakes. So at this point, they go back and forth. And okay, here's the other thing she does. She asked him, I think, is this the point where she asked him? Hold on. Let's see. There was a point in the text messages where she asked him if they're going to meet up. And okay, so at this point, she sends him another picture. I think when she asked him was later on. She sends him another picture of herself, which it really just comes off as being a desperate play. It's been almost 2 months now. I think now we're in January in the text messages. 2 months now since she's heard from this man. She keeps texting him. He's not being responsive. And so she sends him a picture of how she looks, like, oh, here's a much better picture of me. Okay, that's fine. But here's the thing. She's essentially trying to use her body to like pull him back in. If you try to use your body and that's all you think you have to offer a man, you're going to be in trouble, because there's lots of girls who have beautiful bodies, and your body is not going to withstand the test of time. Like, you have to be willing, you have to have something to offer this man beyond just a pretty face, a tight waist, a big booty, whatever the case may be. Because listen, time is going to ravage your body like it ravages everybody, even with all the plastic surgery in the world. Things sag, things wrinkle, things don't stay in place. So you can't just use your body to try to lure someone in and expect it to keep them there. Because even if you find a man who, if that's all he wants from you is your body, then you run the risk of, once he feels like your body is no longer what it used to be, he could very easily just upgrade to a, quote, newer model. And again, I'm not trying to throw shade at this girl. I just really think this is a teachable moment, and this just sort of shows the common mistakes. Again, I have made some of these mistakes also when I first started dating. So I think we can learn from this. I'm not trying to put her on blast. I mean, she put herself on blast when she put this whole thing out there, and then he replied with the text messages to prove that he wasn't just being, a total ass to her like she accused him of. So at this point, she asked him, do you ever want to meet up? And this is it's been 2 months now. Like, at the very least, this man has not asked you out. If you have to ask him if you want to meet up, then that should tell you everything you need to know. The man who wants to see you is going to ask to see you. The man who wants to talk to you is going to call you. The man who wants to make plans to be with you is going to make plans to be with you. If you have to do all this work, that should tell you everything you need to know. Like, you should not have to be the one trying to make things happen. So at this point, he replies to her and he says, no, he's not interested in meeting her because, hold on, let me go back to it. He said the text messages have been kind of weird and he's not really interested in meeting her in person. That was the most like polite, respectful response he could possibly give to her. And she got her feelings hurt. And instead of just taking the rejection, with grace and dignity, she decides to go on her podcast and attack his character. To which here's where she's like, oh, whatever with her podcast. And she called him arrogant and said he was so rude. And in response to that, and I don't blame him, especially especially in this day and age where we have text messages, we have screenshots. So since she's attacking his character, he responded back by publicly posting all the text messages, which show that he was in fact respectful and, he didn't disrespect her in any kind of way. Like, a rejection is not, it can be disrespectful. I don't think the way he did it was disrespectful, but outside of, her just feeling entitled and her getting her feelings hurt and decided to put him on blast, I think that there's a lesson here that single women can learn from. So, my disclaimer to this is, of course, everything I'm saying will not apply to every man in every situation. That's a given. So, no need to tell me about, oh, some guys are shy. Yes, I'm aware of that. But generally speaking, the things that I talk about in this video I think, are pretty universal, and it's just a good starting place. Of course, you want to make modifications based on your own situation. But just generally speaking, and that's the whole thing with generalizations, you have to take them with a grain of salt. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, thumbs up this video, and leave a comment below and let me know what you think. You can talk about the whole dating thing, or if you want to get into her being entitled and the Twitter battle she got into with Levy, whatever you want to talk about, chime in below. Give me your thoughts. All right, love you guys. Bye.